whole paper here, I don't wanna get it lost in my
Yeah,
stuff.
just the. Alright, it's 6 o'clock. Alright, I guess we got everybody here at 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You okay, Jim?
I'm not making it.
Did you fold into the chair?
I tell you, I'm about to collapse.
Alright. Okay, let's have a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Scott. Second.
Second.
That was you, Tate?
Yep.
Okay, any additions, deletions?
Yeah,
discussion?
I'd like to delete item 8.3. 8.3 is to approve the contingency fee agreement for Franz Law of San Diego, California in the Jewel Labs mass action case. I talked to our school attorney this afternoon and she said she feels there's too many questions in it, and if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So she's going to look into it a little more this month. She has some other school clients that have also asked about it. So she's going to look into it a little more. Her concern was there might be hidden fees not in cost, but in labor, which turns into cost. So on behalf of the several clients that have asked, she's going to look into it more, and I'll bring it back if she decides it should become a motion.
Can you explain to us what it was?
Sure. Juul is vaping, and similar to the tobacco industry when it was different tobacco companies were sued several years ago for advertising to youth by using cartoon characters, etc. The goal here was to sue Juul Labs in a mass action, not a class action, a mass action across the country for providing vaping in flavors that appeal to kids, like cotton candy and bubble gum and grape and strawberry. So the result that Franz Law hopes to get out of this is a settlement in which Juul would maybe not give us money, but give us, like vaping sensors for in bathrooms, and training for prevention, and training for counselors and social workers to help kids get out of the habit of vaping. So I thought that stuff was all good. But we're gonna, just on the advice of our attorney, wait, and I will have it back if she thinks it's worthy of bringing back.
Well, and maybe if nothing else, if we do wait, it will be like the tobacco settlement where foundations get the money, then people can apply for grants too, then you don't have to be part of that and have no
Yeah.
cost, so.
Yeah, thank you.
So there's no deadline to have joined this yet?
No.
All right, anybody got anything else on the agenda? Right, if not, we'll vote. Those who are in favor of approving the change on the agenda and the rest of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, where are we at here? Public comment, yes. Is there any?
No.
There is none. Okay. So we're down to 5.0 consent agenda. All right, can I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Carmel, second?
second.
Who was that?
Me.
Deb? Okay. All right, any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, none? All right, those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. And I will just send a shout out here to the head cook that's retiring there, Jill Canazzi. Okay, Jill Canazzi, for all her work with the district, and good luck on her retirement. Okay, number 6.0, communication reports. Dan, you're up, I guess.
All right.
Hey, Sam.
Well, I think-
Over here.
We have
So I think most of the update will kind of be a tour at the end. So I'll try and go through this, and then I'll go over the budget right now. And this isn't just normal job trailer clutter on the table. I thought these drawings would be cool for you to see. The far ones are from Raymond, 1938. And these are from Maynard, 1916. Just some blueprints we found when we were kind of gathering information for the properties in the boxes. And this one, when you get a chance at the end of the meeting, check it out. They hand drew a quick budget. And for the 3-story schoolhouse, it was $30,000 or something. It has the electrical, so those will be cool to check out. Schedule-wise, yeah, and maybe I'm kind of a nerd, but it was fun paging through that stuff. So, schedule-wise, we are looking good, and when I bring you on the tour, we'll be able to check that out. So, I know there was a request to go over the budget, so I have the tiny little printouts for you, but basically here it is the overall budget, and we kind of went over construction costs last meeting. So I'm going to go over like the permit and owner costs and then the fees and services tonight. I think we all kind of understand the funding side of things, but if you have any questions, just please let me know. So we'll start out with line 201, and that's abatement. It's the first one under costs. So a lot kind of, Sherry can attest to this, a lot kind of went into the abatement. They did a bid program almost like we did to get a contractor in here. They are basically finished for this summer's renovation. They're off-site. Once in a while we might find a surprise on like a chalkboard or something, but for the most part they've been off-site. So we had $300,000 budgeted for that. Their quote, or their bid came in at $173,600, and then that $6,000 is some costs that they had to get the bid ready, just their initial inspection. So right now we are under budget, but like I said, there was some surprises that came up, so that 173 isn't quite accurate. I'm waiting on some of those extra work they had, and I'm also going to fight them on some of it that they could have caught right away. So there was some that they should have caught, and then we had to go into another containment, so they had to set up again, get all the labor, test the air. So there's some discrepancy in that I'll be fighting them on, basically, some situations. And then that also will cover next year's abatement for some of the items that we didn't get into this year, some of the classrooms that will get changed. Plan review is the state's price for the cost for having the state review the plan and then noting it up, getting it back to the architects. Then they have to make their changes, get it re-reviewed. So that cost is in there. Plumbing plan review, similar to the plan review, it's just a whole other department. For some reason, electrical and everything falls under the state, but plumbing has their own review. So that fee came in a lot cheaper. The reason I think the original budget amount was higher is if you get into different municipalities, like in the Twin Cities, the city will have their own reviewer and they'll charge you a lot more. So that budgetary number, on a lot of these we're coming in under. Those funds will get allocated down to fill in where we might be a little over. So kind of further on in the explanation, we'll kind of get into security. Looks like it might be a little higher than what was budgeted. So all these funds will get reallocated as the project goes, and we feel comfortable, like, okay, we don't see any more costs probably from the plan review. We can take some of those funds and move them into a different area. So it's just a fluid work in progress. Basically it's a budget. It'll change as we see different costs. So the health department review, I'm still making sure that we got everything covered with Countryside Public Health, but that one came in well under budget so far, and that they kind of review the kitchen design and everything, and that's part of, we'll get into the consultant fees later, but the good job that the consultants do in their design makes the review a lot quicker and cheaper, basically. So you're getting value through your consultants that were hired through the architect. The building permit fee is just based off of kind of the square footage and the value of the project. That came in a little bit under budget, but happy to say we got our permit on time. There's a lot of schools, the state's way behind on with COVID, the reviewers, and getting the plans passed to the right departments and stuff. We were able to get in nice and early and make it, so that didn't hold us up. Utility relocation, sewer, storm, and water. There's a good chance we may not see any costs with that. That goes back to different municipalities. If the city, say you're changing grade on a road or something, they might say, all right, you need to pay for this water to go further down, so now you need to upgrade our storm sewer down the road and stuff like that. So kind of an unforeseen budget amount that we need to put in, but that's probably some funds that can be reallocated. Utility relocation. Right now we have the pricing from Excel, or their estimate, and that came in quite a bit lower. And what that does is you had credits through all the years of business, and then they also look at the forecasted usage, so they kind of give you credit back to that. So, and what we have them doing is they have to bring in a new service, but we're going to get rid of some of these posts that you'll see on here, and just kind of update the site. So that'll be included in there. I believe that work will be a little later this summer. Fiber optic relocation and electrical. I think we're going to be covering that in some other funds, probably general funds, lower, and like stuff that could fit into that would be kind of our tower fees with what we did with the internet, and you already have the fiber run to the school here, so there wasn't a lot to change there. Clara City fees. What that entails is some engineering costs, and I did reach out to them. They did have some engineering looking into like the storm sewer and the sanitary lines. So I suspect there will be a little more cost to that, but that came in well below what we forecasted. And there again, every city's different, and Clara City's been awesome to work with. So then there's also the City of Raymond and the City of Maynard fees. We don't quite know what we're getting into yet with those as we investigate the decommissioning of the buildings. So those are kind of out there until we know what we're dealing with. Probably now we're down to the fees and services.
Hey, I got a quick question for you.
Yes.
On that abatement,
Yes.
the money that was allocated there, is that for any abatement at the other two buildings, or is that only within this building?
We can, with these funds, we need to get, I'm working with the abatement company to get estimates on those other two buildings.
Okay, so that
So-
budget didn't include that initially, it was just
No.
this building?
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be a perfect spot to send some of this as we get the estimates done.
Okay.
I feel like those will be a lot cheaper because you can do full containment. Where here, it was every little room, every little chalkboard would have to get sectioned off and the air monitored for 24 hours, and then they monitor the overall air. So the contractors did a really good job because they weren't reading any dust. And as you see in there, kind of our partitions, you'll be able to see that on site with the demo contractors and whatnot. So fees and services, probably the largest one that encompasses a lot of items that you don't really see on a project like this. So this is the design, the program, the construction management. That covers the architect, the civil engineer, structural engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineers, the consultants, the theater consultant, the kitchen consultant, the sound consultant. So if you can imagine all the engineering that goes into just every little thing with all the regulations these days, that's kind of what that covers. So, and just to give you an idea, is most of their work, a lot of their work is already done. I mean, they've done the design, we got the plan review done, but for those of you that have been on the POC committee, or I'm sure you've seen Chris, I got to jump on the project in March, so I wasn't part of like the schematic design phase. But I call that the information gathering. You're getting the budget, you're getting the needs and wants, and then you come up with that preliminary design. And that sounds really easy, but there's a lot of work going into that with the architect and just the owner and just getting a good picture of what exactly is going to go on with the project. Then there's design development, and I call that kind of the engineering. Not only like the actual engineers, but just working with the owners and getting their feedback and getting all the details worked out. So at that whole team I listed off in design development is really getting the plumbing, electrical, the HVAC, the civil, all the engineering. The HVAC one is, I mean, you can imagine how crazy that is. Just a lot of details. Then really honing down the needs and wants. All those POC meetings, those we'd spend a day on certain areas, just meeting with you guys and figuring out what you need. Then we got the estimate that says, all right, can we get to this project that we're gonna build? You know, we're talking with all our contractors, we're doing our historical estimating, just making sure it's a plausible project. And that's kind of when we come to the board meetings and present it, and we felt like it was safe to do. Then you get into the CD phase. So all that whole team is still working on this, fine-tuning everything. That's when you find out if the codes, the requirements, all the regulations are being met. You get the specs written up, the work scopes, and then the bidding. And then you get one last fine estimate. We say, yep, I think we can pull this off. Well, and then we all saw how the bidding went, the procurement and bidding stage, and that went pretty well, because we're all sitting in the trailer now, and as you'll see on the tour, things are moving. So then now we're in the construction management phase. That team is still readily available, and we had the structural engineer here today. He was able to answer a bunch of questions, and this is when we really rely on that strong team, is when we need a quick answer. People that are actually building the stuff, and they're out in the heat, and they need to know, you know, if something goes wrong, they need to know the fix and how we're going to fix it. And they can't stand there, and we can't lose money with them standing there. So far it's been going well. Is there any questions on what that fee all encompasses? As far as...
I was just gonna add, if you don't mind, these drawings to me are a reflection of that cost. So just pull one out. I don't want to take one of them. Pick one.
Yeah, so, well, and this is an elevation.
Should I help you?
Sure.
It's
So
more of an
so you get the overhead view, and you would be amazed at the
But I
detail
know, but you
that
gotta
goes-
see it. Yeah, the detail.
the
Pull this
details
side
that
and I'll
go-
do it.
That go in Vanna White.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's pretty simple, but when I'm in the halls, you picked a really boring
I
one.
picked the exterior
Oh, here's
elevation.
one. This is the theater. Okay. So I heard in the hall one day, one guy say to the other guy, 1013. I don't know where the electrical goes in 1013. Where's 1014 and 5? And then they go to these things, and somehow this tells them what they have to do in 1013. And they just look at that. These things are about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch thick, about every detail of everything in this building. And I always go back to when the referendum passed and the next day people wondered where the bulldozers are. It's all this stuff that took all that time from the time we said it's okay to go, that TSP still, by the way, comes to our meetings once, twice a month. And then when there's a problem or a question or a change we want to make, they have to go back to the TSP, to the architects. Can you back up a little, because I'm in this wall. And they have to do something to change this, then it has to go back for approval, structural engineering approval.
And not to mention submittals, like,
Oh,
okay,
submittals.
I'll just pick
Tell them what
out.
submittals are.
So submittals are, the specs were written, they quoted per specs, so they have to meet specs. So that's my job and the design team is to make sure when they submit, okay, this is a tile. And this isn't, it doesn't show it on this detail, but okay, there's a certain tile type. They need to meet that manufacturer, and that brand, and these architects they specify which manufacturers based off of the quality and just past projects they've done. Well, then you have the color. So they submit their sample of the tile. I got lots of tile back on the shelves and stuff, but they send you physical samples, they send you the product data, and you gotta make sure it meets spec and approve them, and then once they get approval, they can order it. So they gotta send me color samples, the physical samples. So it's, there's a lot of submittals. I think there was 900 some.
So every Tuesday morning at 9 or 10, I can't remember, we have a meeting in here with plumbing, electrical, Donix, everybody, and Dan keeps asking for submittals. I need your submittals. Which means nothing comes here out of the 950 different kinds of submittals without approval to make sure it matches the specifications that Justin from TSP said is going to be in this building.
Yeah. So, and during bidding, people could go for alternate products that weren't listed, like, there we go. And then part of the review is they review the quality of the product compared to the other items that were listed in the specs. And just history, if they've had good luck or bad luck with a certain manufacturer. And basically the design team picks the best quality for our budget. They were very in tune with the budget that we presented, and they did their budget. We talked about, okay, you're high there, we're high there, why are we high? And then we would kind of come to a consensus on where we were at for budget. So was there any other questions on line 3.01? That's the big one. All right, then moving down to reimbursables. So that's listed in the contract. What that is, it's kind of the mileage and travel and extra printing of documents for the consultants. My travel is in there. So just kind of the construction design team's travel. So that's an estimate of reimbursables that'll get kind of factored in. So as we get closer to the end of the project, if we're low on that, we can allot those funds to a different area. So site services is the actual, this trailer we're sitting in. Do you have questions? I can zoom in on some.
We have a copy.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, so then we're on site services. So that's at the actual what's going on here. So that's Brad, our job soup. Some of you met him. He had to leave. Some of you were coming in when he was leaving. So that's his time. Like the general job soup. So that would be Brad's boss. They come in and make sure everything's going all right. The safety coordinator. And that's factored for over the duration of the job. So that's their time, this job trailer, and like the office supplies it'll take to do this, more paper and stuff like that. General conditions, this is a budget. This is my fun thing to go after is it's the storage container, the dumpsters, the toilets, the site fencing, the winter conditions, which are pretty unforeseen with snow and heat. So our goals are to get as much enclosed before the winter months here, so heating is a lot lower. Because when we have to pay for heat for doing block work and stuff like that, it gets really expensive. Cleaning, final cleaning. So that's a budget number 2, and I'm constantly monitoring our monthly bills, like toilets, as we get more workers on site. You know, every 10 workers per week, it's another toilet. So we just got to be cognitive of that and kind of keep that going. Any questions on the general conditions? All right, and then site survey is basically giving the contractors for where do I put the shovel in the dirt is kind of they use the GPS. I don't know how they did it back in the day and paste it from the property line or something, but it's pretty cool now. So you get a waypoint of where you're starting, a control point, and we did that in a couple spots. We get the surveyor out here, and that just gives the starting point. And then it's kind of cool to see all the electronics that they actually have on some of this equipment. Then it starts making sense on how they can do it so precise. Soil investigation, that was required by, so you basically bore down, I think they were about 15, 20 feet, and they get all the different layers of soil, and you do that in strategic spots around the site, and that's how you figure out, okay, the top 5 feet of soil looks bad in this area, and they wrote out, I think it was a 30-page report for each one, and then you got to have that done before you can even bid. So companies like Dunnock can be like, okay, we're probably going to need to import this much soil, or we're going to end up stripping this much bad soil, we're going to have to export it. Fortunately here, most of the export we'll be able to use on the non-building, non-structure site, so we won't be paying to haul stuff away, so that'll be good. So that's that. Construction testing. This is, so the state inspector is here every day. Every time they're gonna pour any concrete, he's here to inspect what they're pouring. He's inspecting their rebar, he's inspecting everything. And he comes in here and then he ends up filing a report. And for how behind the state is sometimes on technology, the one guy sits in here and his report hits my email box before he leaves. So it's kind of cool, and then we can catalog that. But along with that is we're required to have third-party testing. So we have Braun Intertech testing, and he basically follows that inspector. But what he has to do is he'll cut cores of the concrete, do density tests, and he's here every day. It was just kind of cool watching him when they were doing soil testing. Every 12 inches of fill, they would have to compact it, and he'd say, nope, compression test, and then pretty soon when it got dry, Dunnock had to actually spray water, get compression, then he would test it. So it's everything is like double tested and regulated. It's amazing what goes into all of that, and I can explain more when we're walking out there. So they'll test all kinds of things. They'll test welds. They'll come in and inspect the welding on the structural steel. There's a whole category of all the items that they need to test. So then we get into photos and monitoring. That we kind of have under general conditions we're looking at right now, like we have the site cameras up here. So there's certain fees in here that, like I said, these funds can be allotted once we're certain we're not going to be using them. So I think we'll get some drone photography going just so people can see the site, stuff like that. Bond finance and issuance, that's basically Eller's fee, and that's included in that top number, the original number, but we just wanted to, sometimes we'll take it out of the budget on certain jobs where then, okay, this is our real budget. This one we happen to include it in the overall project, so we just recorded it as a cost down here. So that's what that number is. Insurance and builder's risk, we have that number. It's I'll have to look at what we're going to need for decommissioning the other schools. So before we can't just close that one out right now. We're waiting on that. I really don't feel comfortable at this stage. It's so early on to really start moving any of these numbers around. But I will be talking with Kim when I think, okay, we can. This one, I don't foresee any more costs. Let's look at this budget amount, and then you can tell me where we should allocate it. Legal, I think that'll get more into kind of the land sales with Maynard and Raymond, and then those funds we like to keep on there just in case something happens on site. So that's a tough one to reallocate until the end. So relocation and storage costs. Like Scott ordered a second storage connex for some of the equipment that'll have to come out during renovation. Moving expenses, if it's just too overwhelming to say, all right, we're gonna bring all this equipment over, once the school's done from the other schools, and you want to hire 2 guys in a truck or whatever company. And so that's what that is allocated for. And then miscellaneous expenses. This is something we could probably look at putting like the new school sign and monument on. Right now I have $150 in there. It was a pressure test just to see by Brothers Fire, just to see if there was enough pressure for the fire system for the addition, and it's just stuff like that. Anything that might come up. So other than that, the next line is just kind of some budgets for looking ahead, and we're all kind of working on that in the POC committee. Right now we have the security pricing out, and we're kind of reviewing the pricing for what came back. We had some questions for the lower priced company, just to make sure they had everything covered, like the other 2 that priced it. So I think at the next meeting we'll be able to say, hey, we picked out our security. It does look like it's going to be a little higher than what we budgeted, so some of these funds will have to be allocated to that. Technology, kind of working with Jesse. I know he's been doing a good job on just ordering stuff and kind of seeing what the new rooms are going to be outfitted with, and have a handle on that. And then playground, we're kind of jumping into, that's next kind of on our agenda with the POC, is getting that kind of started, get the ball rolling, and then just getting some feedback on what we all want to put on there for equipment. So equipment and furnishings just kind of falls into tables and desks and what we're going to put in each room. So moving forward, that's kind of the stuff we're working on right now. Like I said, we'll have a tour where I can answer more questions on stuff going on, but is there any other questions on the budget?
No, but thank you. Appreciate all of this. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Madam
Dan,
Chair,
yeah,
would you
please,
mind if we hear from Carmel? As long as I know we've got committee reports later, but as long as we're on the topic.
Sure, go ahead.
Carmel, would you care to share a few points about
Our meeting this morning? Yep.
today
So,
or last time too?
We met this morning. I'm trying to think, the time before that has been quite a while ago. But we did meet this morning, and most of our discussion was on the special ed rooms. And at this point right now, we're going to have the architect put together a couple of different options for some changes there. And then hopefully by the end of the week, we have that, or maybe first part of next week. And we were gonna send it to the special ed department, and they can choose from there what they think would work the best. And then we talked a little bit about, we're waiting on some numbers yet on the security part of it, which company to go with there, and that was about it. And then I had to leave. I don't know if you guys had.
That was it,
more.
yeah, that was
Okay.
pretty much it.
And then, like Dan said, I've been doing some work on playgrounds, just looking at different companies. Just to reiterate, West Parents donated $15,000. I was in Wyndham on Friday, took some pictures. Talked to some kids, what did they like? What works for them? I saw some things that didn't work in the playground.
The
and
cops
so-
didn't have to come and ask you what you were doing.
No, but as a parent, you're reminded to talk to these kids, ask them what they like.
Well, you must have scared them away because there was no kids in there.
I did. Then I just said, can I just take a picture without you on it?
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, playground's coming up, and I have some plans for how to involve parents and children in the planning on those playgrounds. So, but the reason I'm talking about that now, and the playgrounds aren't going to be put in until probably a year from now, is like everything else. We want to get the stuff ordered, we get it built, so we've got it here when we're ready to roll.
Yeah, with materials.
That'll be the next POC, like Dan said.
Okay.
Sorry, Dan, what?
With materials and everything, it might make sense to try and get it ordered by the end of this year, just so.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the playground?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
anything
I
else
just-
on that?
can I just-
Yeah, thank you, Carmel,
Yeah.
for talking about the special ed. I've
Yeah.
gotten a couple emails, Jane Green sent one out just about the options
Yep.
that were drawn up and whatnot, and that we appreciated meeting with everybody, but that even with the divider there, it remains compromised, that space does. And I did get a letter from a parent too, in support of that. And basically, you know, the parent was saying that other parents have spoken at board meetings and it just doesn't feel like the district doesn't care about the special needs children. And that Mrs. Toma, who's been here forever, that is not being heard, and people need to listen to her. She's got years of experience and nobody cares more than she does. And this is a parent who's got a child in Mrs. Toma's class. And she's made such a huge improvement with her daughter, and it, again, talked about how her daughter gets distracted very easily, and that by having all of those spaces in there, would just not be conducive to her daughter's learning. So Julie got the same email. So I just thought it should be brought up so that the board knows that there's been a lot of conversation with the special ed staff and parents about just the layout, and the special ed staff really did a good job of analyzing the drawing and came up with some options about, I think Mrs. Hargett talked about, like, basically her classroom is about the size of her house's bathroom. And so then you add a desk in there and some storage units and 2 or 3 kids in a wheelchair. She said that's not okay. And so they came up with some options about maybe taking a wall down or doing some different things and whatnot. So they have some options that they had come up with, so it wasn't like they were just crabbing. They also brought solutions to the table, so.
What, and going back to that, so that was given to our architect,
Yeah.
and he's looking now and seeing what can be done with the HVAC, the plumbing, the different things like that, so.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm sure they appreciate
Yeah,
that.
there's a lot of issues with there because, you know, there's over 20 of those tubular skylights in that area alone, and with the sprinklers and the
Yes.
diffusers and the lighting and everything else that's in there, a lot of things are impacted by moving things around. So we'll get a couple of options. I think he's going to do a couple options for the elementary and a couple for the middle school special ed. So we should be getting those in a week or so.
I know the staff will appreciate that.
And I just want to thank Dan for the air conditioning and the place to meet, because we have no air conditioning in the building, so it's rather warm and stuffy in there, so thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Okay, Jim Trulock, are you ready?
I am. If you guys want to stretch, I've added a few things to mine because I want to go as long as Dan did. So,
I got my water, I'm ready.
oh, yeah. Well, most of mine is pretty self-explanatory. Something I didn't put on there is when we started spring season, we were wearing masks and only had to go a couple weeks into it, thank goodness, which allowed me to go to some events then. And that ended and it went pretty well. Early in the season, we had a couple incidents in 2 of the sports, but overall, we made it through the whole spring season with very little problems. On the second page there, you can see I put the participation numbers, percentages by grade and so on. We usually add last year's, but remember last year was canceled, that's why I didn't have it to compare with. We started the year going to have a musical on number 2, and just when we started looking at early graduation, the amount of time that the kids had to prepare it, although we had intentions of having it, and Miss Ross had, I think, a practice and tried to pull things together, just didn't work out. All of a sudden, we were down to less than a month, and that wasn't reasonable considering they had to be, the band kids would be preparing for graduation and commencement and stuff like that. For number 3, boys tennis, and I can't remember how long it's been since they've had a team win, and they had 2 of them this year. So it may seem like that's not that exciting, but that's definitely baby steps, and I think there was some potential. A few other things would have went better with some of the team members, but still a couple wins. It's a start, and I know Mr. DeHoo is excited to try to build on that. Number 4, we did have 6 people go to the second day of the section tournament, and it sounds like we did not play our best golf that second day, but we did have some people playing multiple sports, which also play a role in that, I'm sure, as well, and did not qualify anyone for state. Number 5, I thought it was a struggle of a season. Again, our numbers weren't fantastic by any means. Had a little illness, a few illness things going on early, and to end the season winning 2 section games, I thought was really exciting because I don't know if the way the season was going for a while, they expected that. So the 2 teams we lost to were definitely better than us at that point, but still getting 2 wins, I thought was real exciting for the softball program. Baseball had one of the best seasons they've ever had. They were at one point were 16-2, And we got down to the last 3 teams in the section. We've beaten Wyoming twice during the year, the second time handily, and we beat Adrian within the last 2 weeks of the season, and then those are the 2 teams that ended up beating us in the playoffs. And Adrian, as the number 6 seed, is in the state tournament. They ended up going the final game with Wyoming and went 1-1, and so Adrian is going on. And number 7, our track season. The girls had a real good season. Our numbers were a little higher in girls, but they really performed well and were real competitive. As we got to the section meet, we found that the south section is definitely more competitive than we are. We did really well in our north subsection event, but there's no question the south has has some really strong track programs. But we had 1 state qualifier, Riley Ashburn, from the RCW district. He qualified 2 events, long jump and the high jump.
It was a very memorable section track meet.
It was beautiful weather.
100 degrees, and the last event started after 10:30 at night. We came home and said, well, you'll always remember that one. Yeah, they had lights on around the place.
And they tweaked and made a bunch of adjustments to try to, a longer time period for field events, so those kids would not be competing.
Well, then they had a timer. The timer broke,
Yeah.
or it quit working, and they had to get the one from Lakeview to Redwood Falls. So it was,
I heard someone say, well, why couldn't they just, get someone clap or something? But the gun starts the clock, starts the timers. It's a little more advanced than it used to be back in the 60s when Scott was running.
Scott never ran.
Just as an FYI, number 8, the coach's contact period is adjusted a little bit this year, and it does change every year over the 4th of July as far as when it starts. I believe it starts on a Friday and goes to a Saturday or vice versa. But this year I just put them down because spring sports went a little late. They did not start the contact period till June 7th, and then that's the time over July 3rd through 9th. Now there is a little bit of a difference for baseball and softball, and I haven't figured all that out yet, but they are allowed to have contact. They're treated a little differently since they're considered summer sports. And lastly, I'm not ready to do that why we play video and all that. It'd be awkward in here anyway, but I'm going to do that probably later on in the summer at one of those 2 board meetings. But Kim has filled out the state high school resolution to become members again, and Sherry would rather have us do that now earlier than later. We looked at the prices. Kim ran a spreadsheet from 2014-15 just to give you a general idea. It's some of the money problems are obviously because of the year of COVID and all the tournaments they lost. Some of the money, I don't know if they're problems, issues, is the State High School League really did not change anything for almost a decade. We only went back to 2014, but we were paying $90, and you guys don't have that in there. But you guys were paying $90, we were paying $90 per activity back in 2014-15, and I'm pretty sure it was done for many years before then. I would say a minimum of 10 years. And they had never changed that until 2 years ago. They went up to 110. And it just, with inflation and what venues cost, and where we're playing our state tournaments and even our section tournaments when we go to SMSU, it's extremely expensive. And the State High School just never adjusted to that. And so they did. After last year, we threw in a bunch of extra money. So 2 years ago, it cost us $2,200 to be part of the State High School League. And it was, back in 2014-15, it was $2,090. So it really was not adjusting as the years went on and inflation continued. Last year, because of the extra payments, we paid $7,650. Well, this year they changed it to try to help. Last year, remember, they made a few adjustments and went to 3 different school sizes. So this year they're charging every district in the state a $100 fee. So everybody gets that. And then there's a $225 cost per sport. So the larger districts that have many more activities obviously are going to pay more of a fee there. And then we pay $6.35 per student, and that's statewide. So again, the larger districts that have thousands of kids are going to have a lot higher fee than what we are. Kim and I looked at the enrollment today, and we come up with some different numbers. So I sent an email into the State High School League today wanting to know where they came up with our enrollment, which they have down as 186. So I know there's some, which grades did they pick, which year? Is it this year's 10, 11, 12, or does it go to next year? This year's, 9, 10, 11, and so on. So I'll get clarification on that. But if it stays at the 186, our cost this year would be, I guess, $5,556.10 would be our cost, which again is over $2,000 less than last year. That's the plus. And if they find out that at the end of this year that the funding is, there's a surplus, they said they're willing each year to look at that and maybe adjust that cost per sport. So maybe next year it won't be 225, maybe it'll be down to 200 or something along those lines. So I don't know that I can answer any more questions about it, but you can ask me and I'll find out if I don't have the answer.
One of the things I'd like to add, Jim, is that my colleague Keith Kotke out of Springfield worked very, very hard with Eric Martins, at the executive director, to make sure that none of this was arbitrary, and that it's equitable across the state. And all of us superintendents backed him and what he was doing and supported what he was doing, and so big kudos to him for really leading this. And in addition, there are 2 new superintendents, I think it's 2 representing large and small schools in the state. I think I sent you something on that, but to put an eye on this all the time so we don't have another fiasco like last year where all of a sudden there's what, we gotta pay how much, and everybody's doing, no, it's not the same and it's arbitrary. So a lot of things have happened in the last year since we last asked you to approve this. A lot of good things have happened.
And I love the consistency to where the 225 per sport does cost the people that, they've done so many schools have 20 more activities, if not more, they pay for it, and as well as the per student.
It sounds like they came up with a more equitable solution there.
I agree.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, if there's no more questions, well, Judd's not here. Are we just gonna?
His report is in there.
It is just, okay,
Yeah.
nobody has comment on Judd's or Melissa's reports. They're in the
I guess I like-
documents there, so.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to say summer school is going very well. And we've got some very dedicated staff that are paraprofessionals that are helping to do a lot of logistics with it. And we've got transportation going on, and we've got food service going on for what we can do for the kids. Food service is kind of like a bag it once a week. We're very, very light on food service staff this summer, so it's like bag it, I think, once a week, and it's disseminated as the time goes on. But the main thing is that kids have, and I think it was Judd's report that has some, or I can't remember which one it was, had some comments from some of the kids and families and teachers, and
Yeah.
it's going well. I'm pleased that there's some academic achievement. I just talked to a parent today who's working with some kids on essential algebra. And a lot of kids getting some credit recovery out of that, so that's what it's all about.
So Sherry, did I understand you, we are doing the summer PD program? You just said.
The summer school kids. We
Just
had,
for the summer school kids.
because we had a light staff to do that, and we don't have that many summer school kids, so.
I think Judd said they get breakfast and lunch, right?
Mhm.
They get breakfast and lunch.
Yeah, I know we had conversations about,
Yep.
there's a program out there, and we wouldn't even have to use our kitchens, we could subcontract with local restaurants or whatnot. So we do have a lot of kids in our district who are facing food insecurity issues, big time. Families that are struggling and whatnot, and it would have been nice if we could have taken advantage of that funding and gotten it delivered to folks. Other districts are bringing it right to people's houses and whatnot, or working with local transit, but we could have also helped a local restaurant with some economic development by subcontracting with them too. So unfortunate that our kids are gonna have hungry tummies this summer. Because the food shelf is only available once a month, and you only get 1 week's worth of food, that's it. Has anybody had a hungry tummy before? I see everybody's eyes are down, that's them talking about it again. It's like, we have children that are suffering from food insecurity issues, big time, big time. So I just wish that we could do something to help them. It stunts their growth and development, their learning.
Well, I think something like that takes a little more planning, so maybe next year let's start talking about that a little sooner. You know,
It comes
before
up
school.
every year.
Before, I mean, but before the school is out, so that we can plan ahead a little bit before kids are actually out of school. So,
This is a program that is there annually. Annually. And planning for next year isn't gonna help the hungry tummies that are out there right now. Especially with COVID, there's a lot of folks not working yet.
right. Anybody got any comments or questions? Okay, Sherry, you're up.
A big project that is in the works right now is ESSER $3. McRae is set to receive $765,000, and there's a lot of procedures that have to be in place to start the wheels moving on that, on getting that money. The first thing is me talking about it here tonight. I've already been working with Sam on what is ESSER 3, how does that happen? We need public comment. So Debbie, when you were talking about food, if people put food for next summer into the comments, that's a way we can spend the money. We need to hear from people about what is from the taxpayers about what's important to them. So in your packet are some pages. The first one looks like this. Last year in August 1st, I think, or 4th it was, we were required to report this, the learning scenarios. Learning scenario 1 is in-person learning for all students, 2 was hybrid, and 3 was distance learning. The scenario 1, how do we bring all kids back in, is the one we need to take to the state. Those are my packet. Okay. So all the way down, scenario 1, Sam is ready to put that in the paper this week. It's on our website. And what we need is community comment on this. So anything that has to do with, like if we go along down the list here, standard attendance, students arrive late, leave early. Maybe there's a parent that says, something about busing, then we take note of that, and then Kim and I later will create a budget. I use the example of some parent says we should have spaghetti every day for lunch. If 59 people say we should have spaghetti every day for lunch, because then we take note of that. Some people have already talked to me about playgrounds, because they're a way to use this money to get more playground equipment, some tables, some benches, so some FIAD equipment in there, so that if COVID or another pandemic hits, that's a place we can get kids outside, because we know it's better for them to be outside. They spread germs less. So these are all the things that will be out there in the public. And then there is a comment. Jesse created an email to me, comment at McRae. So next Monday, by next Monday at the end of the day, I need to have a summary of all the comments, and then report that to on our website, and then Kim and I, after that, have to create a budget and submit that to the state by October. So
Okay, so how are we letting people know that they can do commenting?
it's an article in the paper,
Okay, and then it's on the
and we're
website.
talking now,
Then it's on the website.
and it's on the website with an introductory.
Okay,
Yeah.
so to be clear, we don't automatically get those dollars. We have to apply for those dollars based on showing a need, and then we can get up to that many dollars. That's our maximum, basically.
Can I just share again? I've worked with low-income families for almost 40 years. It is very humbling to have to ask for help. It is very humbling and humiliating to say, I don't have enough food to put on the table. I'm appalled that we are not taking this more seriously. We just did a survey. 47% of the low-income families in our area have issues with broadband. They're not going to go to the website and fill it out. Not many of them get the newspaper.
Are you saying we should get the information out a different way?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what do you suggest?
Well, what would you guys do? What would you do if you were low income? How would you want to be contacted? Maybe somebody could call you. Maybe you could send out a form to everybody to fill out. Maybe you could look at the free and reduced lunches to see what the percentage is on there. Most of those families are the ones facing food insecurities. There has been issues within the McCray community where children have had hungry tummies for days. Have you gone without food for days? Days. I think we always say, no, we can't do it, we'll wait till next year. Tell me one reason or one way we can do it. How can we ensure that our community is taken care of, our McCray kids are taken care of? And it's not as easy as just surveys, it's really having those relationships with those families who are struggling to meet their needs. There's ways.
Well, it would require staff, people to be hired or whatever
When
to
is it
spend
due?
the time or
Friday
volunteer their
afternoon.
time.
Okay.
Now, that's just for this first portion or is it for the whole thing?
It's for everything, I believe, right now.
Okay, that's the.
If you want more statistics, there's an attorney who lives up by Kirkhoven. We've been working with her with the ACGC district. They're doing meals, they're delivering them to locations and whatnot. I mean, she is all about food insecurity. She's got numbers, she's got data. She can tell you how many kids are in there. And I'm more than willing to share her information. But
But these comments are for everything involved with ESSER, not just, food was just one example that you could use, do a suggestion for, so.
But
And
we
then are
can
the
do other
questions
things.
gonna be right? But are the questions gonna trigger that families are gonna wanna say that I don't have food, or I don't have adequate this or that or whatnot? Are the questions gonna be able to trigger that? And what reassurance are the families gonna have that their names won't be shared? Are there confidentiality things built into the surveys?
We can do other things too. We can automatically, I know it's next year, but we can automatically, Kim and I can say we want $50,000 or $100,000 to feed kids and during the summers. We can do that. It doesn't all have to be, because we also know what we need. And so there's other ways to make sure that next year, that it's going to be a longer summer next year, so.
I mean, if you're concerned, if you're concerned about the wording on the questionnaire or whatever, I mean, is that something you'd be willing to do?
I would love to. I would love to work with that on it with the committee.
Okay, then, with a separate committee for that, we'd have to set up. I mean, I think we don't necessarily have, I mean, this isn't something we need to work on yet today. I mean, there's a lot of questions that go with this, so we're gonna need to get some more information. But we also have to get this ESSER stuff out by the deadline, or we aren't gonna be able to collect any of these funds, right?
Right, I mean, I have to compile the survey, the comment information on Monday and put it on the website,
Okay.
so.
We have a week to get the responses back.
So this is a little bit of a side question, but isn't the summer food program go off your free and reduced too? I feel like a couple years ago, we were very borderline whether we qualified for that or not through the state.
And now we're even lower on the free reduced.
Okay.
Problem was when people quit submitting the application for educational benefits, when they started getting the food, then there was no
Sure.
reason, apparently, I don't know. You know what, I can call somebody tomorrow and see if they can start making some phone calls to people that, at least the people who have submitted the free and reduced lunch in the past, to see if they need help.
So you said there's less, now you less people have filled out the form, or there's less people that qualified for free and
Less
reduced?
people.
Less people
But not
that fill it out.
That fill it out.
There's
That
going to be
return.
a whole lot more that qualify, and there are extra funds this year for the summer feeding program that the state has through the pandemic. A lot of extra funds.
So are churches and things using these funds as well to distribute foods? Who are these funds available for?
School districts,
So they're the only ones that have access to it.
that I'm aware of, yeah.
The second thing I have is student handbooks are in the board packet. Melissa and Judd have collaborated on those this spring. We always believe it's important that you look at these and approve them as you see fit. These documents drive the work of the principals, teachers, and students throughout the year. On legislation, I got an update today from Valerie, the MREA, maybe you guys, not MREA, MSBA. And Valerie said that there are a lot of very positive ideas about finishing well before June 30th to get the settlement and money on the formula, etc. for the state. Dan's already given a construction review, and soon I will meet again with East and West groups to continue our conversations about school. Debbie and Tate are on those two groups. So,
Okay, that's what you got. All right, any questions, anybody? Okay, then we go, 6.2 is committee reports. I think that was yours, Cornell, right?
Yep.
So we have
For negotiations?
yeah, Scott was gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Yep, for negotiations, yeah, we met a few times, and we're kind of waiting to see what the legislation does. We're waiting to see what they're gonna give us for funding. I think they started today, and they have till June 30th to make a decision. We've negotiated with custodians, paraprofessionals, and the teachers, and again, we're just kind of waiting. One more key thing that we've been talking about is compensating people for extra things they do. Like, for example, the custodians need boilers license to run the heating and air conditioning, so paying them a stipend to have the license and helping them get the license, it's some of the things we're talking about, but that's really all we have.
That's a good point. We talked to Paris too about another example, Scott, about getting additional training, CPI training for special education and stuff like that. So thank you for that.
All right, any other questions for Scott then on negotiations? All right, if not, business items, 8.0. 8.1, motion to approve membership in Minnesota State High School League for the 21-22 school year. Can I get a motion on that?
I can make a motion on that.
All right, Cornell. Second, anyone?
Second.
Is that you, Lane? All right, any discussion on that?
Yeah, we need a designated school board member to be a contact that can vote for the high school.
It's Lane last time.
Yeah, it was like.
Thanks for doing that.
Okay.
Pretty stressful, though.
We gotta get you doing something, Lane. We gotta get you doing something.
Yeah, thank you, Julie.
Okay, Lane's the contact.
It's a
Thank you.
resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's not any more questions, we'll,
Here.
is there any more? No more questions? Okay. Let's take a vote on that motion to approve the membership in the Minnesota State High School League. Those in favor say aye. Oh, you gotta-
I think Charles got to read it.
Oh, I'm sorry, she didn't read it yet.
I want to.
Okay, resolved that the governing board of school district number 2180, County of Chippewa, State of Minnesota delegates the control, supervision, and regulation of interscholastic athletic and fine art events referred to in Minnesota Statute Section 128C01 to the Minnesota State High School League, and so hereby certifies to the State Commissioner of Education as provided for by Minnesota statutes. Further resolved that the high school listed below, McRae High School, is authorized by this, the governing board of said school district to school district or school to renew its membership in the Minnesota State High School League and participate in the approved inter-school activities sponsored by said league and its various subdivisions. Further resolved that this governing Board hereby adopts the Constitution, bylaws, rules, and regulations of said league and all amendments thereto as the same as are published in the latest edition of the league's official handbook, on file at the office of the school district or as appears on the league's website as the minimum standards governing participation in said league-sponsored activities, and that the administration and responsibility for determining student eligibility and for the supervision of such activities are assigned to the official representatives identified by this governing board. Signing the resolution for membership affirms that this governing board has viewed the Why We Play training video, which defines the purpose and value of education-based athletic and activity programs and assists school communities in communicating a shared common language. Member schools must develop and publicize administrative procedures to address eligibility suspensions related to Code of Student Conduct violations for students participating in activity programs by member schools. The above resolution was adopted by this governing board on this school district, and is recorded in the official minutes of said board and hereby is certified to the State Commissioner of Education as provided by law.
Okay, so that sounds like it's a resolution, so we have to do an individual roll call. Okay. All right, roll call vote. Those in favor say aye, those opposed say nay. Carmel?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
I guess me, yes, and the last one, okay. Resolution passed and adopted then. Okay, we've got 8.2, motion to approve the 10-year long-term facilities maintenance plan. Anybody
I will make a
motion that,
motion.
Scott?
Yep.
Okay, second anyone?
Second.
That was you, Tate, right?
Yep.
Any questions, discussion? I guess, Kim, you filled out the chart as based on the best estimate you can.
Yeah, and a lot of it is pre-populated, like the revenue is just automatically put in there. I can't do anything to change it. It's based on student population, age of buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all gonna change here in 2 years. So it's just,
Right, it's sort of just necessary paperwork that needs to be done. Okay. All right, let's vote on that. Motion to approve the 10-year long-term facilities maintenance plan. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, motion passes. 8.3 is out. 8.4, motion to approve membership in the MSBA.
So moved.
All right. Lead, second anyone?
Second.
Carmel, okay. Any discussion on that?
I included in your packet the power of the membership that has 10 different examples why to join MSBA.
All right, and Jim's already talked about the fees a little bit on that, so.
Are there schools that don't?
Boy,
I mean,
I suppose there are.
okay.
I think the vast majority see the tremendous value in it.
Private schools or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and
Very
there's
helpful.
no other discussion or questions, we'll take a vote. Those in favor to approve the membership in the MSBA, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, motion passes. 8.5, motion to approve the McCray Safe Learning Plan as a precursor to receiving those ESSER 3 funds. Would like to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Scott, okay, a second.
Second.
Wayne, all right. And this safe learning plan is something we've already got done, right?
Yeah,
Fair?
and it went through the advisory committee last summer and we've been working off of it, so it's just a placeholder here to prove that I brought it to you and
Okay,
it's ready to
it's been
go.
documented. Okay. Any other questions? All right, if not, we'll take a vote on that. Motion to approve, take a vote on the motion to approve the McCray Safe Learning Plan as a precursor to receiving the ESSER 3 funds. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, that motion passes. 8.6, motion to approve the student handbook for 21 and 22. Deb, all right. Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Scott? Okay. Anybody got any questions or discussion about that? I looked through it myself. The only thing was that I didn't know if all the stuff on page 41 about COVID-19 was still, that's gonna be in flux, so that'll have to be reviewed again.
There are some things in there that I know that Mitch and Judd will want to adjust, but they don't know yet because they haven't worked in these environments here. So, it's a possibility that maybe they bring it back again mid-year or something like that, but,
Got some revisions. And of
there's
course-
some
yeah.
schools leaving COVID in everything they do. I just had our ag teacher, one of our ag teachers, Ben, today say, can we sign up to go to Indianapolis for the National FFA Convention? I said, let's do it. It's time to move on, and if the worst thing that happens is we lose our hotel reservation costs,
Yeah.
but I think we're looking at moving ahead, so.
Anybody-
Maybe it'll be irrelevant, but
Right.
let's hope it's irrelevant.
Exactly, and then obviously it's scheduled because it's not been canceled, it's been scheduled, so, okay.
I didn't really notice any other major changes.
No,
Okay.
no.
Anybody else see anything? Okay. If not, then we'll take the vote. Those in favor of approving the student handbook for 21-22, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, that passes. And what's left here? 8.7, motion to approve ending the pandemic clause on the Prairie School Board meetings effective July 12th of this year, 2021. Anybody got a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
You did that, Tate? Okay, any second?
I can second.
Okay, and what exactly are we ending?
This means that we are no longer streaming our meetings. This means we go back to the old way of doing meetings. That's what that means. Some schools are doing it, some aren't, but the School Board Association said you should probably make a decision one way or another because there are people that are asking around the state.
Can we do both? Could we continue to do both in the future? If we wanted to?
I think, according to Terry Morrow, you have to do it one way or the other, but I can't remember the rationale why. I think it has to do, I can't remember why.
Is this where you can, like, if I'm not attending, I can still vote? Is that what this means, or is
No,
this?
because you can still do that, because there's been times people have been gone, and we just include you from wherever you're at. Would that, we would go back, we would continue to do that.
Yeah, but it used to be you didn't even have to publicize that, it was just automatic. And this makes it back to, you have to say, I'm gonna be in the hotel lobby of
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
the Best West.
In a public place.
Yeah.
And people that want to come to the meeting, come here to the meeting.
Yeah.
But we could still, can't we still do the meeting both in person and then also stream it too? I mean, even, it doesn't matter if we're outside, if, you know.
I was
So
just
that the
asking.
public, yeah, so that the public can be more privy if they want to participate or.
Well, I suppose we could. I don't know how many people are utilizing the service. Has anybody heard any comments?
I get
Jesse.
comments.
Do you?
There's 3 people watching right now.
Okay. Are they able to call in? Is it like a Zoom or is it just that
No.
you can see who's on? It's all one, okay. Is it a lot of extra work and would it just be a nice transparency thing or giving people another avenue?
Well, if we didn't stream, Jesse wouldn't be here. He doesn't generally work on Mondays. Well, he works. He's always working, but he's usually here just to get this done, and so.
So then it's looking at what's best for the district. You know, transparency or extra staff time, sorry.
I think we could go back to how it is, and maybe we'll have a lot of people ask us for it. I don't know.
Did you have an average number of people that were tuning in every time or not?
Live, I don't think I've ever seen more than 10 people.
Yeah.
Views, like playbacks, people watching it later. I think I figured it out a month or so ago. The average, if you take out a couple of very extreme outliers on views, the average is like 60, maybe. Might even be less than, might even be under 50. Just as an average number of time. And that's not even, that's literally somebody loaded the page. So that could have been Scott clicked it and then came back 20 minutes later, forgot he clicked it, and reloads it. That's 2.
Well, I usually watch it every day. So.
Yeah, so
you look at it,
Like seeing stuff on TV.
That's why I'm right here.
Came from a polo.
Gosh, if it's even 50% of that that are even watching, that's 30 people that are more engaged with our district and know what's going on.
But does this have something more to do with the Zooming where you're sick and you can Zoom in from your house and all of that? Because I know there's a lot of other places that stream. I think this is more about where
Yeah,
you're meeting at
Right.
versus
I think
how
other
it's streaming.
districts have streamed their meetings for a
Yeah.
long time.
And done both.
Yeah, yeah.
So we need, I guess, clarification, which is it, or is it both, or?
Well, the
You know what,
pandemic,
I gotta go back and ask Terry, I can't remember what he said.
I would guess it's probably both, but at any time, I would think we could choose to stream our meetings. I would
Yes.
think. You know.
because it was COVID, people weren't
Right.
allowed to come to the meetings, so to keep
Right.
it public, it had to be streamed.
Right.
And they had to have a way to make comments.
Come September, we want to stream the meetings. I think we can just stream
Yeah.
the meetings if we want.
Right.
So then I'll make a motion to approve that with the caveat that we continue to stream our meetings, as well as have in-person meetings.
I think we gotta.
Well, then, yeah, we have to
First.
do a new
Yeah.
motion
Or we
then.
have to vote on
We
the
gotta
one on
vote.
the first
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
So the motion that we have out there is to approve ending the pandemic clause on McRae School Board meetings effective July 12th, 2021, which means we would no longer be doing the Zoom. Is it the Zoom
YouTube.
or YouTube, whatever? Okay, for every meeting, although we would continue to meet in person. Does that sound right? Okay. All right, well, let's,
So if somebody gets sick, we can't just Zoom them in like we have been able to.
is, okay, yes, that's what would happen.
And then people are allowed to come to the meetings.
Yes, just like before. Okay, right, so that's what we'll be voting on. Okay, so those in favor of that scenario, vote, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, so that motion passes. And you're right, Scott, I think we can probably start streaming anytime we wanted. We could just make an announcement or put it in the paper that, you know, we'll be streaming starting this date or these meetings or whatever the case may be.
So then I will make that motion then, that we continue having, after this is done, or that pandemic clause, whatever, that we continue to have both in-person and YouTube meetings. That our meetings are streamed.
So does that need a second now? Anybody want to second?
I will second that.
Is that you, Carmel, that's what you got?
More or less continue to stream the meetings.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, just stream the meetings,
Right.
yep, yep,
All right,
have them in person and stream, so.
Great. Any more questions or discussion on that? Okay, then we shall vote on that. Okay, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, so it passes with that adjustment.
Tissue adjustment.
Which is basically exactly what we're doing right now. Okay.
See how good you'll be at.
Okay.
Or you can train others.
He's pouting.
Yeah. 8.8, motion to approve joining MISC, which is this insurance, Minnesota Insurance something trust. School trust, okay. So do I have a motion on 8.8?
I'll make a motion.
Scott, okay. Second,
I'll second.
Lane, all right. Questions, discussion? I believe this is just to allow us to consider this, joining this group, if the rates are right.
Yeah, they need board resolution to allow us into MIST. It's a 3-year commitment by state law. And we just need to look at, we just got the proposal, so we need to analyze it a little bit. But we wouldn't have another board meeting before we had to decide. So if we decide not to go with MIST, we shred this and it's no big deal. If we do go with MIST, we've got it covered. We don't have to call you guys in for a special meeting.
So it just keeps us under the deadline here.
Yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions on 8.8? If not, we'll take a roll. Those in favor say aye.
He's gotta read it again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I gotta find it.
Way at the end.
Resolution.
Back to the pages.
Yep.
Okay, where's yours?
It's just that first page.
Okay, resolution for membership in the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust. Whereas the school board of School District 2180 has the authority to participate with other units of government for the purpose of jointly providing casualty, property, and other protections through self-insurance and purchase insurance. Whereas pursuant to this authority, the board has received and reviewed an agreement for the district's participation in a self-funded insurance and excess insurance casualty and property pool known as the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust. And whereas certain formats and procedures have evolved for the prompt and efficient operation and the administration of MIST. Now therefore be it, and it is hereby resolved that 1, the board approves the district's membership in MIST and adopts MIST's intergovernmental agreement as presented and intends to be bound thereto. 2, the board hereby authorizes and directs its chair and clerk to execute a signature page of the MIST intergovernmental agreement as presented and any amendments thereto on behalf of the district in the form as attached hereto as Exhibit A.
Okay. So that's a roll call vote. Those in favor say aye, those opposed nay. Carmel?
Yes.
Yes.
Scott? Kate?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Deb? Yes. Myself is a yes. Okay, so that resolution is adopted. Well, pass and adopted. Okay. 9.0 upcoming meetings. We got regular board meetings, July 12th, August 19th, and September 13th. And we're going to adjourn to take the tour of the remaining.
Actually, we'll do the tour, then we'll
Then
come
we'll
back.
come back and do the final
And
adjournment.
Jesse's going to film for us. Thank you, Jesse, appreciate that.
If it turns on the delegate, I'll come.
Those meetings we got here.
I don't know.
Which means we'll have to wait, we'll have to see. MS.
What time do you play?
I'm signing these because you don't want to go.
Okay, Dan, you got equipment
Yep.
for people?
So there's hard hats and vests back in that back office, and you're all gonna have to sit through a safety orientation, visitor agreement. I'm just kidding. Just don't wander off while we're walking through, but just so you know, everyone that comes on site, we do sit them down. The contractors have to get a sticker on their hard hat, and then visitors, we do sit them down and make sure that they know all the rules on site.